Hi everyone, and welcome back to Ways of the World, a brief global history with sources, as we continue our study of Chapter 7, Commerce and Culture. And today we're going to continue with sea roads, exchange across the Indian Ocean. All right, the sea roads. Paralleling the Silk Road trading network, a sea-based commerce in the Indian Ocean basin connected the many peoples between China and East Africa known as the sea roads. So if a captain wanted to sail from Malindi on the east coast of Africa to Calicut in southern India, what months in the monsoon season would give him favorable winds? The captain should sail between April and September for the most favorable winds. So let's compare this with the map from the first section on the Silk Roads. Where do the Silk and Sea Roads intersect? What different geographical obstacles might travelers or traders confront on these two routes? The two routes intersect in western Indian cities and on the Persian Gulf. While traders on the Silk Roads had to confront mountains and deserts, rivers, and bandits, the traders on the Sea Roads had to confront different but potentially just as deadly geographical obstacles like rough seas and jagged coastlines. All right, weaving the web of an Indian Ocean world. The Indian Ocean trade started in the age of the first civilizations. Ancient Egyptians and Phoenicians traded down the Red Sea. Malay sailors reached Madagascar in the first millennium BCE. And the tempo of commerce increased in the early centuries CE with greater understanding of the monsoons. Merchants from the Roman Empire settled in southern India and the East African coast, and growing trade in the Eastern Indian Ocean and the South China Sea became visible as well. Now, there's a fulcrum of trade, the fulcrum of trade was India. There are two great encouragers for the Indian Ocean exchange: an economic and political revival of China, they encouraged maritime trade, and the rise of Islam in the 7th century CE. It's an international widespread conversion, maritime culture, and that facilitated transactions. All right, an Arab dhow. Painted in the 13th century Arab artist Al-Wasiti, this image shows an ongoing vessel of Indian or Arab origin known as a dhow, which was central to the commerce of the sea roads. In the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, since at least the early centuries of the Common Era, dhows used triangular sails and were constructed by sewing or stitching the boards of the hull together with fibers, cords, or thongs without nails. So let's think about causation, little causation practice. How could technological developments such as the dhow ship in this image help transform the culture of the Indian Ocean region? Well, ships like the dhow shown here, among others, for example, the Chinese junks, and you can Google an image of a Chinese junk, were adapted to the high winds and other idiosyncrasies of the Indian Ocean, allowing traders to go farther and farther, carrying with them new cultural ideas and concepts. All right, sea roads as a catalyst for change, Southeast Asia. Ocean commerce transformed Southeast Asia and East Africa. Trade stimulated political change, and there was an introduction of foreign religious ideas. Southeast Asia was located between China and India, and it made it very important. The Malay sailors opened an all-sea route between India and China through the Straits of Malacca around 350 CE, and it led many small ports to compete to attract traders. Now, Malay Kingdom of Srivijaya emerged from competition. It dominated the trade from 600 to 1025 CE. Here we see gold, access to spices, and taxes on ships, and that provided resources to create a state. Now, the inland states were based on rice production, and they participated as well. Funan, which was about the beginning of the new I'd say about year 0 to 600 CE. In modern Vietnam and eastern Cambodia hosted merchants from India and China. The Khmer Kingdom of Angkor, which was 800 to 1300 CE, exported exotic forest products and attracted Chinese merchants. And Champa in modern Vietnam operated in China and Java, practicing piracy when trade dried up. All right, sea roads as a catalyst for change in Southeast Asia continued. Now, elements of Indian culture spread to Southeast Asia. Chinese culture was transported to Vietnam. Indian alphabets, artistic forms, political and religious ideas, especially Buddhism, are part of that. Selaendra's kingdom, which is central Java, was also influenced by India. See massive building of Hindu and Buddhist centers between the 8th and 10th centuries. And that shows the Buddhist cultural grounding in Javanese custom. Hinduism also found a place in Southeast Asia, especially in the Champas and Angkor. And there's an Indianization of Southeast Asia as a voluntary process. The traditional practices mixed or existed alongside the new Indian ideas and practices, and there was little conflict between them. It was less patriarchal traditions of Southeast Asia that persisted, with the penetration of Islam that came later. All right, let's look at Southeast Asia around 1200 CE. Both mainland and inland Southeast Asia were centrally involved in the commerce of the Indian Ocean Basin, and both were transformed by that experience. So let's analyze the evidence. Based on this map, how could the geographic features of Southeast Asia facilitate the rise of states there? How could its geographic features be a liability? Well, based on what we see in the map, bodies of water such as the Strait of Malacca, the South China Sea, the Bay of Bengal, and the Indian Ocean facilitated the rise of states in Southeast Asia because whoever controlled the coastlines had the potential to control commerce throughout the region, thereby giving aspiring rulers the wealth and power necessary to develop state structures. The region's mountainous terrain, however, would have made communication and therefore development of centralized states difficult, especially in the inland regions, as would the physical separation of the islands, particularly those in the South China Sea. All right, Borobudur. This huge Buddhist monument in Java, constructed probably in the 9th century CE, was later abandoned and covered with layers of volcanic ash and vegetation as Java came under Islamic influence. It was rediscovered by British colonial authorities in the early 19th century. It has undergone several restorations of the past 2 centuries. Although Indonesia is a largely Muslim country, its small Buddhist minority still celebrates the Buddha's birthday at Borobudur. Angkor Wat and the Temple of Borobudur are examples of architecture influenced by religion. So what does this image suggest about the function of monumental architecture in a civilization? Well, monumental architecture displays the power of the ruler and the elite. It's typically so large it can be seen from far away, and Borobudur shows both the power of the civilization and its Indian heritage. You can see the small little people there on the steps. That's how large this is. All right, and here is an image of Angkor Wat. Constructed in the early 12th century, the Angkor Wat complex was designed as a state temple dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu, and was lavishly decorated with carved bas-reliefs depicting scenes from Hindu mythology. And by the late 13th century, it was in use by Buddhists, as it is to this day. This photo shows a small section of the temple and 3 Buddhist monks on in their saffron robes. So what are some similarities and differences between Angkor Wat and Borobudur? What does the architecture of each site indicate about the society that built it? Well, both are monumental pieces of intricately decorated architecture designed to impress for religious purposes. Borobudur was a Javanese shrine to Buddhism, an Indian faith with Javanese architectural tints, while Angkor Wat was a Hindu temple in the Southeast Asian Angkor Wat kingdom that was appropriated by the Buddhists. Each site provides evidence of the cultural diffusion of foreign religious beliefs while still maintaining localized architectural concepts, as well as the society's wealth and the importance of religion to them. All right, sea roads as a catalyst for changed East Africa. Swahili Civilization of East Africa developed from a blend of Bantu with commercial life of the Indian Ocean, especially Islamic. See a growing demand for East African products like gold, ivory, quartz, leopard skin, some slaves, iron, wood products. An African merchant class developed as a result, with towns and kingships. The Swahili civilization flourished on the East African coast between 1000 and 1500 CE. It's very urban, with cities 15 to 18,000 people. Each city was politically independent, ruled by a king. They accumulated goods from the interior and then traded for Asian goods along the coast. And we'd see a sharp class distinction within these civilizations. Most of the trade was in Arab ships. Swahili craft traveled coastal waterways. There's a deep participation in the Indian Ocean world. See regular visits by Arab, Indian, and Persian merchants. Some even settled here. Many ruling families claimed Arab or Persian origins. And Swahili was written in an Arabic script with Arabic loanwords. And there's a widespread conversion to Islam. Now, Islam and Swahili culture didn't reach much beyond the coast until the 19th century. But Swahili region traded with the interior, and that had an impact. And trade with the interior for gold led to the emergence of Great Zimbabwe, which flourished in 1250 to 1350 CE. And here's a map that shows Great Zimbabwe, as well as the Swahili coast of East Africa. Now, the emergence of a powerful state, Great Zimbabwe, seems clearly connected to the growing trade in gold to the coast, as well as to the wealth embodied in its large herds of cattle. So what was Great Zimbabwe? It's a powerful state in the southern African interior that apparently emerged from the growing trade here. And like I said, it flourished about 1250 to 1350 CE. So based on the evidence in this map, why would the cultures of cities such as Ras Fahafan, Mogadishu, and Kiwa be different from that of Great Zimbabwe? Well, these cities were closer to and much more culturally linked with the Arab world. In fact, many people in these cities were Muslim as a result. And that concludes our study of the sea roads exchange across the Indian Ocean. I will see you guys next time for the sand roads.